Welcome to another episode of Mr. Therapist and the Counselor Podcast. We are the best mental health and recovery podcast out there. Whether you're dealing with an addiction, a mental health issue, or you're just trying to figure some things out in life, we empower your growth through raw conversations and demystifying the process of therapy. I'm Manny Romero, Jesse O.
This week we talk about what it means to be California sober, and we talk about if marijuana still is considered a gateway drug.
Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Share this show if you find some value. Share it with your friends. Share it with your mom. Share it with your dad. Let's go.
Here we go.
California love. Ooh.
I can't believe it's snowing, dude. That's crazy.
Do you think that's going to sound okay? And I just sang in the mic.
I hope it sounds okay. Did you reference it's crazy that it's snowing?
It's snowing.
Yeah, man.
What's the weather like outside?
Oh, man, it's delightful. Oh, the weather's like weather. Dang it, I screwed that up.
I know.
You served me up on a plate, and I screwed up that whole reference. So. You know, it's coming up, the big holiday.
Ooh.
I hope that you got yourself a tree. Do you get a tree?
We do the tree thing, yeah.
Okay.
We do a tree.
Hopefully there's some presents underneath there.
We have a Philip Rivers ornament.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
To the viewers that nobody gives a shit about Philip Rivers. Who's
Wow.
Philip Rivers?
Philip Rivers.
Who
Philip
is that?
Rivers is the man, the myth, the legend, Chargers quarterback.
It's a myth that he's a legend, right?
Wow. Okay.
You're kind of stumped right now, huh?
Rex Grossman. Anyway, he is a Chargers quarterback from 2003 to 2021, I think.
Yeah?
And he's really good.
Yeah.
He's great.
Do you celebrate Christmas?
We don't know what to talk about in this episode.
No,
yes, of course I
that's not
celebrate
true.
Christmas.
Don't take that back. We do. I have a whole fucking itinerary right now. I just this episode's right before Christmas is coming
We're like
out.
40 episodes in, dog. Like, get it together.
So, what do you get?
What's going on with you? I think Jesse's broken.
What
is it? What is present?
So, Christmas is right there in front of you. It's like staring at you in the face, right? No, what do you guys do? Do you have any Christmas Day traditions?
That's a good question.
Thank you. Jeez.
Yeah. Actually, the cool thing about this year is we're gonna break traditions. So we talked about creating new traditions, right?
Yes, and how important that is to do. We're allowed to do that.
Yeah, and so usually the tradition is we'll go to my in-laws for Christmas Eve, and they stay up till midnight, open gifts at midnight, and we'll hang out there. And then in the morning, we'll go to my parents' house, and we'll hang out with them for Christmas Day. That's when they open gifts. So that's our tradition.
Cool.
You know. But I think what we're going to do this time is we're going to switch it up on everybody and do it at our house.
Yeah.
Because we got two girls, and we have the excuse of needing to build a tradition around them.
To the viewers that don't visually watch us, it wasn't actually snowing outside. It was just kind of like trying to get in the season.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't it be great
if it would snow?
Yeah. So no, California snowing is never a good thing. Have you ever
the whole Mariah Carey thing going right now too, right? It's like the Mariah Carey.
That started like months ago, dude.
Christmas.
Months ago.
What is it? What's the song called?
Hey, have you ever had to deal with snow? Did you ever live in an area where there was just snow?
Never, but I did have to deal with snow before.
Yeah.
Like, I got stuck in the snow.
Did you?
Yeah.
Like Big Bear, or what are you talking about?
Yeah, Big Bear.
Yeah,
we were driving down, and we slid. What do you call it when you slide down and you
slid?
You slide and you get stuck, and you can't unstick yourself. So that's what we did.
So, I asked that question because I know living in California, I know people really are fond of the snow. But when it rains here, it's like Armageddon on the streets.
Yeah.
So it's just I if anybody's ever like has this great like idea of what snow is, it's really nice. It's really pretty, and it's like if you don't have to go outside and just enjoy like a good snow day, it's great. But like the aftermath of snow, of like trying to get out of the house. When I was getting sobered up in Indiana, I had to live through the polar vortex. Do you remember that? You ever hear of that?
No.
It was like it was ridiculously cold. It was like minus 40 something degrees, and it was like there was warnings of not being outside for too long. But I remember having to shovel snow every single day, and my honeymoon phase of snow quickly went over. Yeah, that was over. So snow could be quite a
It's
pain
great for
in the
pictures.
ass. It really is. So, and it would be great if I mentioned it on the podcast. It was actually like snowing behind us. Beautiful visual if you watch it.
We can barely do like water, like you said. Imagine icy roads.
Oh, I know it'd be. I know people would just lose their shit. So,
no, I'm glad I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
One time I went to Big Bear, and they were like, "Do you want us to plow the snow?" I think they said. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or do you want to do it yourself and save yourself, at $20 or something? I was like, "Oh, I got it. I'll do it myself."
Yeah.
That was crazy, dude. I was plowing for like an hour, and I only got like a little bit. Like it was like, damn, this is a
Straight
real
plowing,
job.
dude.
Yeah. So is that what you say, plowing? No?
Yeah, I think that's what the kids say.
But
So
anyway.
like capping, plowing. So
Capping, bugging, you bugging.
that's old.
Nah, it's back.
You didn't. Thanks for asking me about my traditions with my Christmas. When I celebrate, Manny's very invested in my life outside of this podcast. But one thing that my mom always does is she'll make these specific like Christmas Day cookies, and they're pretty bomb. So, yeah, it's like that's always like a nice little tradition.
Oh,
Yeah.
can I have some?
No. So time session. You want to start the clock?
Yeah, let's do it.
Happy holidays, everybody. Whatever you celebrate.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, so-
Well, that was really politically correct, dog.
Thanks, man.
Way to go.
I know what I'm doing
Yeah.
here. So we're gonna start the clock. The clock is upside down right now.
Can you read it?
No.
You gonna fix it?
Flip that thing.
Oh, why don't we have an assistant?
I don't know.
Okay.
Why don't we have a lot of things?
There you go.
So this week, with your Christmas tree up in your house, some people, when they see the green tree, they think about smoking that tree, right?
Thing with that broccoli.
So we're gonna. You wanted to talk to me about weed,
I did, man.
marijuana,
Yeah, I want to
hibbity dibbity.
I just, Puff the Magic Dragon. Are you
said,
high
hey, man.
right now?
No, I'm not.
I just want to call it out. I want to I'm
Whoa.
done with it, dude.
You're
Like,
done with
I'm just
people?
done with it, dude. People are defending weed too much, and like, why does weed get a pass? Why? Did I take your line?
Yes, we have scripts. No.
Why does weed get a pass though? Like weed is a narcotic. It's dangerous. It's addictive. It can ruin lives. It like messes with your brain. It messes with your system. It changes your behavior. It has so many implications, and always gets defended. Like people are like, no, yeah, I get alcohol, I get opiates, I get meth, but like weed, man, weed is natural, bro. I'm like, no. It's not. So I'm just done.
This ain't your mom and dad's marijuana. This ain't ain't your grandma's marijuana. The game has changed quite a bit, right?
It really has.
But you were bothered by this because one of your peers kind of not got attacked, but like people were really like giving this person a hard time about suggesting that cannabis, marijuana, it's not good for you. Here's the thing. This is my experience often when I bring up like smoking weed, right? Because I think that's that's not the forbidden gate, but that's like their last opportunity. Like, well, weed's still okay, right? Like I have to stop doing all drugs and alcohol, but I can still smoke weed, right? Because it's not that bad.
Right.
So I think a lot of times marijuana, that's probably why marijuana does get a pass, right? Is it's not as like addictive, highly addictive.
That's crap.
Is it crap?
Yeah. What does that even mean? It's not highly addictive. Does it? Okay, like the withdrawal symptoms aren't as bad as like opiates or meth or those, or even alcohol. Alcohol, by the way, people also don't take it as a drug, but alcohol is actually the most lethal drug that you can take. It's the only one that can kill you coming off of it. And so
that and benzos actually as well. If you're taking like Xanax and things like that, like
the can
you could have such a terrible if you don't medically detox from alcohol or benzos. Like you could have a seizure and die. Yeah, it's very dangerous to do. Like getting up opiates for sure is it's a miserable existence, but you shouldn't, if you're coming off like your prescription opiates or heroin, like you're just gonna be in
that takes away the
pain.
power of alcohol. I was like, the alcohol's the only one, but now I can't say that. But yeah, like, is it that you think that's why people say it's not addictive because it doesn't hurt when you come off of it?
I think that. So I think people also hold marijuana and cannabis in a certain light, right? Like the argument I've had often will be like, well, marijuana does so much to people. So if you think about like a cancer patient,
like
right?
benefits,
yeah, the benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about like somebody who's like probably worst case scenarios is like struggling with chemo and they're given like prescription like marijuana to smoke, right? So people see it as like this is like a safe alternative, but to argue that point is that you're also like there's times where probably prescription pills like opiates and maybe even certain benzos like Xanax might be okay for the most severe cases.
Amphetamine is used for treatment.
Yeah.
So you're saying like, oh, let's go do some meth. Then.
First of all,
like,
I'm not saying any of this. This is like
I'm sorry, I'm getting a little.
I feel like I might have to be like pro marijuana all of a sudden. I'm like, hello, my name is Dr. Green Thumb. No, it's often a debate I have with clients because there's.
Do you get pushback too?
Yeah, still to this day. So I mentioned to you California sober, and you didn't know what that was before we talked about before we went to the podcast.
Yeah.
But California sober is a term typically used to describe people who decide to quit consuming drugs and alcohol, with a few exceptions. That few exception tends to be most times is marijuana.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's the least addictive one, so people aren't fully committing to sobriety.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still get pushback on it a lot because I think there's still a very like maybe just because it recently has been legal in different states, but now I think people just compare alcohol and marijuana. I have this argument in my head of like somebody saying like so somebody that's under the influence of alcohol when they drive, right? And then the influence of somebody who's under the influence of marijuana when they drive. I guess like there's this thing of like, well, I even know the joke is like people are like, well, when you're driving under marijuana, you're probably doing like 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Like you can't hurt anybody, but alcohol, like you're out of control and you're incapacitated, you're blacking out. But you know, being under having a certain state of mind, being impaired, it doesn't matter the substance. It can still like cause a dangerous situation. So
yeah, I just feel like who's in charge of like deciding what the powerful drugs are, what the acceptable ones are, what aren't. I feel like at some point in my lifetime, like all of a sudden weed started to become very acceptable. Whether that's, I don't know if it's the pharmaceutical company, is it like, is it Joe Biden? Is it the cartel boss? Like, who is it? Like, who is deciding, right? Like, it's like that weed is, all of a sudden at some point we started seeing all these benefits for CBD, THC. It helps you with improved, I don't know, what are some of the benefits people say? Like anxiety, right? It helps you treat anxiety. Okay. It can help you with focus. It can help you. And it started to almost like be a little bit, I don't know, romanticized, but put it on a pedestal a little bit of like, you know, like, gosh, I had family members all of a sudden using CBD cream, and I'm like, okay, like it's this idea of like marijuana all of a sudden started to be almost marketed to the public, and I'm like, and part of it is great. It's like awesome. We're advancing the field and like helping ourselves understand the benefits of some of these things, but I just think a lot of people justify it to use it in an unhealthy way, you know. And I think there are like the 1% cases of people that maybe really need it, like maybe a chemo patient, maybe marijuana is the only thing that helps relieve those horrible symptoms that somebody goes through. But I mean, if you're a kid living in your mom's basement smoking weed every day, and you're using that as an example to like justify your use, like I don't think it makes sense.
I guess maybe there's that argument and stigma of like, and it comes to maybe like harm reduction, right? Is that like if somebody were to ask you if you wanted your daughters smoking weed every day or shooting up heroin, I think what would be your answer right now?
Well, yeah, I'd rather them smoke
okay, right.
weed.
Okay, so yes. Okay, so right. So I think most people are gonna, if you do the comparison thing, I think that's where
at least it's not this.
Yes. Yeah. So that's that's harm reduction a little bit as well, right? The idea of like, I'd rather have my kid be doing this than that. So, and I think that's what people hold out hope for a lot of times is like people don't really want to be truly sober. California sober is like, okay, I'm giving up so much already. It's like, can I still do this? And marijuana's that do this. Like people are hoping they could still use. They still want to get like they want to have an altered state of mind. So like marijuana really is like that last resort.
Right.
So
I will say this: I'm not like I don't want to come off as like this uncool like
narc
34-year-old guy, right? Yeah, this narc geek who's like, oh, like focus on healthy habits here. But like, but I think it's important to understand that there is levels of use, right? And that you have to really assess like where you're at. Like kids will always go through this phase of experimenting with drug use. Like I think like it's just a part of life to experiment with trying alcohol, trying drugs, seeing how it feels. You get you get influenced by friends. That's the first level of use. The second level is recreational use, where you start to use it at a party just to have fun, right? And then it goes from there to a more dependent use. I'm forgetting the exact words for this, but like I think it goes from experimentation to recreation to a little bit more and more dependent until you're fully addicted to it, right? And I think I think it's hard, but like we got to be honest with ourselves as to like, oh, how am I using this drug? Am I using it every day? Is it something that I'm starting to need and rely on? Like those are so important questions. How does it make me feel like that I'm using that I'm using this? Do I get embarrassed to talk about it or to mention to someone that like this is something that I lean on and use, right? And I think some of those questions, unfortunately, they make you look, but they're making you aware of like where you are in that process.
You brought up, we could talk about this or not, but like you had mentioned having a conversation with somebody like an adolescent and how they were very protective of like marijuana and like it's not problematic. Like you don't you get
so frustrated. Yeah. Can I share that a little bit?
Please.
So I was actually I get actually like through family, friends, and people that I know. Sometimes what will happen is somebody will be like, hey, like I know you worked in the substance use industry. Can you come and talk to like my kid or my cousin or someone who's maybe like they're worried about, right? And so they wanted me to come and talk to this individual and about marijuana use because they use marijuana and the parents were having a really hard time with it. And so I'm like, okay. So I print out a few things for them. And I'm like, hey, like, so, your parents are worried about you. I'm not here to tell you what to do or what not to do, but just here to, like, tell you, like, what the truth is, And the truth is that, marijuana is an addictive substance. It's a controlled substance. What a controlled substance is, and the reason why it's addictive is because when you consume it, unlike any other food or Tylenol or whatever, it crosses the blood-brain barrier. So, like, it goes through this process of making you feel a certain type of way. It makes you feel high. That's when people feel high, right? So it's giving you this actual effect in your brain, and all drugs, by the way, touch this same area of your brain. So if this drug is touching that area of your brain, that's why I don't like saying, oh, it's more addictive, less addictive. It's addictive, and there are negative effects to that. What are some of those negative effects? There's research shows that it messes with your executive functioning part of your brain, your focus, your ability to organize, your memory, your ability to remember long term. Actually, some new research studies are starting to say that it ages your memory, like it makes you like more forgetful. And so there's a lot of research that needs to be done around that. But what I said too is like these at the time, this was probably like 5 years ago. So like vapes were starting to like come out, right? Like weed vapes, and I'm like, hey, like this is experimental. Like, that we're guinea pigs for weed vapes. And this person like rolled their eyes at me and they're like, no, like this is natural. This is from the earth. Like this is like, it's not addictive. I know I've been using for this amount of time. I'm like, you don't know. First of all, it is addictive. Like I'm telling you, like just by the process of how you consume it and how it goes in your body, it's addictive. But secondly, like we don't know how weed vapes are going to influence us in 20, 30 years. Yeah, it almost reminds me of the time where we started smoking cigarettes. Yeah. People were smoking cigarettes all the time and they didn't know like the effects that cigarettes had. until later on. Like we were the guinea pigs of that movement, right? And so I think right now we're the guinea pigs of the weed vapes.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had that experience with that person, and right, got a lot of pushback, and so it was real frustrating. But
I have had this experience even recently. I was working with a client, and you know, he was very hyper focused on alcohol. It's bad. But the only thing he could think to deal with his anxiety was to smoke marijuana. Like his plan was to continue to smoke weed. And I had multiple conversations with this individual on like, could you imagine if you give your body like a real rest, like to really think clearly and see how you really feel? And people, I think there's just a real fear to like really dive into maybe your depression or your anxiety and how can I cope without a substance. And so unfortunately, like once again, I think there is that perception that like marijuana of all the drugs is the least harmful, the least addictive. I remember also like one of the first times I had a client come into treatment, and this was like maybe almost 10 years ago, came into treatment specifically for marijuana. And I was looking around the room, and this person was the only person that like was there for cannabis, addictive, whatever, whatever the
so minimized, right? Like,
well,
people probably look around like, what are you doing
well, then
here?
because then I'm looking at these alcoholics, and I'm looking at people in there for heroin and opiates, and I'm just kind of like, and it was a younger individual too, and a part of me was like, did your parents drop you off like it was summer camp or something? Like they just were like, we don't want to do anything with you right now. And looking back, I'm like, parents are probably just scared. No, the parents are probably just scared, and they're like, okay, we don't, kind of like, that person that reached out to you. So, and I remember going like, my initial response was like, dude, your problem is not that hardcore. Like, like look around the room. These people are like, they're going to die from this. But that same individual, I remember having that view on that person. I remember that person actually got high at the program a couple weeks later. He ended up using heroin. Now, I'm not saying everybody that smokes weed is going to, shoot up dope, but like,
it's a gateway drug, dog.
Once again, yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that too, but it's a disease of the mind. So the idea.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you said that. Yes. I mean, I feel like that's what I've been saying, but without using those words, like, that's exactly what it is.
Is there anything that, I mean, you'd mentioned studies with marijuana and like how for so long there was like that real like the optimistic studies, but there's a lot more negative studies coming out. I recently even read like how marijuana could be the cause for heart attacks and for strokes. So once again, the game has changed when it comes to cannabis and marijuana use. It's not what it used to be. That's
what we have to look at. That like the weed that you said the weed that your parents are smoking and your grandparents are smoking is not the same weed you're smoking today. Like you're talking about stuff that's genetically modified, that's purposely like powerfully grown, that a lot of times is processed weed. It's like, how healthy could that actually be? Like, even if you look at weed as a natural resource, like once it starts being messed with, how natural actually is it? And how much like consuming anything in large amounts isn't a healthy thing, So
I think people, I guess at the end of the day, they're still just looking for that head change. And I guess I would just say anybody that is just like, I still want to use marijuana, just really take a look at that. Like, why do you need a head change? Just like I would tell anybody that's like maybe trying to like sober up, and maybe initially that California sober is like you're starting to slowly put things down, but take a look at all of it, because I think it's really important to see what's going on around you and see if you can work through it without like using a substance. And now you're getting up every morning now, you're waking and baking, like kind of doing a wake and bake, and like is this like a necessity in your life, like to use this substance? Because if it is, there's a problem there.
There's a couple questions that you can ask yourself, and I think like the DSM kind of does a good job of like.
What is the DSM for anybody that doesn't know what the hell that is?
The Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Health Disorders.
So what do therapists will use this to
diagnose,
right, to break down like different disorders and
So there's criteria to know like if you have a substance use disorder or not. And I think it's just some questions to ask yourself is like, do I feel guilty that I do this? Do I feel bad when I do this? Have I told myself I would stop and don't? Like, is my use increasing more and more, right, than I would like it to? it has started to affect my job performance. Or what are people around me? What do they think about my use? Because a lot of times, like even if we do feel guilty or bad about the way we're feeling after we use, like we won't admit it to ourselves, you know.
Yeah.
So even just having those other people in your life who love you, it's important to consider that.
We touched on it a little bit earlier, but I want to mention the idea of what a gateway drug is, because I think for me growing up initially, marijuana was seen as a gateway drug.
You do the DARE program?
I didn't do the DARE program. I'm sure it probably came into my school, but at the time didn't really have no interest in it. I was probably like, let's talk about Spider-Man or Transformers. So I had no idea, like no insight at all, obviously as a kid, of like how severe drugs and alcohol were, because it wasn't really present at that
Just
time in my life.
Just say no, bro. Just
say no.
Which actually I don't agree with.
You don't agree?
No,
just say
I
no?
don't. Yeah.
Well, you got to say a lot more, or what? You got to set some boundaries. What?
No, that's like the DARE program saying is like say no.
Yeah, I know.
And I think it's healthy to experiment, and I think like people are going to experiment, and it's almost like there's this like the Romeo and Juliet effect of like the more you tell your kid you're not gonna do this, just say no, don't do it, the more it exposes them to hide it from you. Okay. And I don't think it really changes the fact that they will probably experiment at one point in their life. Yeah. So I think that just say no is it's maybe more like sets you up to be lied to as a parent than anything else.
I don't know if I completely agree with that, because I feel like I think that I do. Some people do want to experiment, but some people aren't really interested in experimenting. And so maybe reinforcing the idea of the no concept, like with this thing right here, of just saying no.
If you don't want to, just say no.
Yeah.
I like that
There
better.
you go. Yeah. If you don't want to, just say no. Don't experiment because you want to be a part of that party.
Yeah.
Like you want that social lubrication, like to get it to be involved in something, like not
Sorry, you said lubrication.
social lubricant? Is that what is it? What did they say?
No, that was good.
Okay,
It was just
thanks, slide right into the party. Yes. Happy holidays, everybody.
Good, dude. You're a lyrical master, dude.
I did want to just the gateway drug concept though, is that like I will say at one point in time, marijuana was like the gateway drug, but I'd read studies in the last like 6 or 7 years where your gateway drug now a lot of times is opening up your mom and dad's medicine cabinet. You're seeing it more and more with prescription pills, if it's opiates, if it's benzos, even inhalants. I've heard from kids, like inhalants could be whippets, or kids are finding new ways to like feel high.
Paint cans.
Yeah, seriously, like it's just you inhale some fumes and you get a head change, and you're
Sharpies.
like, what is that? So, but yeah, even like something like a medication like Adderall for ADHD, like you feel that effect, and there's just something it's your anxiety is no longer there, and you're just like, wow, like I'm drawn to that. So, and there's a high feeling. I never really touched. I've never touched like any Adderall, any type of medication, but these are now become your gateway drugs.
Right.
As much as, and once again, probably the number one gateway drug could be alcohol, because as you mentioned earlier, like having a drink and going like, oh wow, like I'm not thinking about this anymore. I'm just having a good time. That's probably the
easiest thing to access at your parents' house too.
And it's still the one that's most celebrated.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing: you're probably at a party. Yeah, most people are gonna pop open a drink before they're gonna like, I smell weed all of a sudden, right? But still, there's still that stigma of like, is somebody smoking weed in here?
Yeah.
So, but like, if we went to a concert not too long ago, like. There's drinking around us, and then like, sure, people would probably lighten up, but it's still
it was
like
loud.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's marijuana. So
So I'm just standing up for the truth here, and like pushing back on the narrative that it's. And like I said, I don't want to be like the prune, right? And be like, look. It's okay. Yeah. Like you can smoke. You can just be honest with yourself as to like why you're doing it.
Trying to say marijuana, the hell of a drug, right? But that was like, no, that's Chappelle. Cocaine, yeah, Rick James. I was just gonna say I never could understand how people could be productive when they smoke weed. Seth Rogen, who was like in Pineapple Express and a bunch of like hilarious, great movies. Serious movies. Well, anyways, but like I've read that he like smokes weed like all day long. And I'm just like, I don't know how he does that. I would love to have a conversation with him about like what does it feel like for him to not be on weed? There's probably some detoxification whenever he's not smoking.
Yeah.
Like, so there's probably not a norm for him anymore. He's probably always on this like green cloud. So,
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How are you gonna? Have you ever thought about how you're gonna bring this up to like your kid?
I think
This
that
topic.
I haven't yet, but I think that I'll just try to be as honest as possible about things, and I don't.
You think you'll start the conversation, or you'll wait for a sign to like?
I can't give you a good straight answer on that because I just don't know. I think I'm gonna be.
We're really early on that.
We're really early in the game with that, so I mean I'm still just trying to like every day try to do the best thing as a parent. Like, sure, drugs and alcohol are going to be those conversations I'll have at some point in time, but I'll be real honest about my experiences with it and how I feel like people most times are better with alcohol without using drugs or alcohol. So
I like that you have the experience to like draw from and talk about.
Yeah.
Is there any anxiety about like you sharing that with?
No, I don't think so. I think that like I said, I want her to be honest with me and my daughter as I've been honest with her. So I don't want it to be like a lot of secrets. I want it to be like the free. I want her to feel safe and be able to talk with me about anything.
Yeah.
Anyways, anything at all. So I want
it to be that way too with me and my daughter. I think that'll be really hard for me to not react if like I find something out or like get mad or angry or whatnot. But I think it'll be super important to like try to remember like okay, like
as we wrap this up here, I was gonna say it's like we're probably gonna get some pushback on this. So weed is a terrible drug. Don't do it. Don't give it to your kids.
We're waiting for
Take it out of your brownies.
Yeah, stop.
But I think it's real important just to
go outside. Go run.
I think it's really important though. If you really want to take a look at your life and make some changes, like, and that includes like eliminating like mind altering substances, like I don't know, people do this, like, is it the Sober October thing?
Really?
They do things like certain months, like
I do Squattober.
Didn't go well this year, did it? But like, no, but people do like this. They'll pick a certain month and they'll be sober for the first 30 days. But I would, when I say sober, try everything. Like, even I don't know if you want to nicotine or caffeine, but like those things that we're just so okay with, and alcohol and marijuana. More marijuana get a pass, but yeah, try sobriety if you're willing to. So.
Cool, man. Good discussion, bro.
Good discussion, man.
Thanks for having my back, dude.
I got you, bro.
Will you have my back once these guys start coming on and pushing back on us?
And please, don't actually smoke your Christmas trees, because...
Don't do that.
Happy holidays once again!